I guess I'd like to call this meeting to order. Any disclosure of interest? We have a fairly well-known guest here today, our detachment commander, who is still our detachment commander, at least for another few days. And Zonk, if you would like to take the podium, that would be great.
Well, good morning, everybody, and yes, I am your detachment commander still for about 2 days or so, although Lisa's in the chair and she's doing a great job. And I just wanted to come in this morning, and obviously I'm moving on to Elmer as their new chief, which I'm excited about. I think it's a good opportunity for me, and it's a good opportunity for you to get rid of me and put somebody in place that probably knows what they're doing more so than I did. So that's the whole plan here. Anyways, I've been with Norfolk as a detachment commander since 2008, which is 10 years. And the only thing I have to say about that is how time flies when you're having fun. And certainly the reason for that fun is the officers that I have working for me, the support staff that I have there, and certainly the Police Services Board and the support that you've given me over the 10 years as a detachment commander here. Some of the great things that I'm certainly proud of that we've accomplished together is, and have been the pioneers to, civilian data entry and how well that worked. And that has been implemented into the provincial model, which certainly we were the driving force behind that. One of the other ones is directed patrols, which was later softened up a little bit and made into focused patrols to make it a little bit more politically correct, which was great. And that, again, started in Norfolk County with the support of the Police Services Board. I remember Peter out there supporting it and actually doing a video to be able to showcase it provincially. And that was one of the other things that was that basically started off at Norfolk County. Street crime unit. I remember some of the street crime guys, and I know Peter worked in the crime unit when we implemented it, and I know West Region was very adamant that none of the street crime guys will work in plain clothes. Well, I had a different opinion on that, and although there were some illegal things going on there in terms of working uniform or working plain clothes, those guys worked 90% plain clothes. And that's really the concept of the street team. And again, it originated in Norfolk County. Right now, the provincial street crime unit team have been implemented again across the province because they understand the concept, and they understand how well it works in the community, and the reduction that we have in terms of some of the drug activities and property crime rates throughout our communities in the province. Never mind some of the community policing things that we've accomplished, with Carol sitting here, with the waterway safety and the drownings that we have in our communities. You know, in some of the other initiatives, certainly with the Project Eclipse down in Port Dover, looking after our youth, implementation of the vulnerable sectors in our community with the bracelets, and on and on and on. So certainly when I look at the 10 years, they flew by, and the reason that they flew by is because we had fun and we were able to accomplish a lot of things with your support. So for that, I thank you, and I hope I have the same support in Elmer. I think I will. It's a very positive and progressive board, and certainly I leave with some reservations, but at the same time, I know you're going to be left in good hands with the OPP, and that you will have somebody in place to replace me that will have the same ideas as I had within Norfolk County, and basically the contractual obligations to Norfolk County. So thank you, and hopefully we'll see you. I will send you my new contact information in case you have any questions, or if you, certainly if I have any things that I need, I know who to call. Peter's always usually pretty good with me and gives me whatever I want, so I thank you for that, Peter, within reason. So thank you very much.
Well, the next thing you might have to give us would be a clone or something, but I think on behalf of the board, it has been a really great 10 years. We are absolutely thrilled with everything that you have accomplished here. I mean, basically you could go on for an hour with all of the accomplishments that have happened. I mean, the mental health crisis workers we wouldn't have without youth stick handling it through the backfield, and it was something that we wanted, and it has been proven very effective, but it's just one of the many, many things that you did on a day-to-day basis for 10 years. And I mean, thanks is something that we want to say, but it doesn't seem really that it's enough. But, and it will be really big shoes to fill. And we know that. So thank you for your 10 years of steadfast service, and we wish you well in the future, and we'll no doubt bump into you on the bike trails. So, and we'll,
Yes, you will. And I did put a request in to make sure whoever applies that he's Croatian. I do have 4 Croatian officers in Elmer, which is like 33%. So we are filling the mandate there with that.
funnily enough, that's what we said to the chief on Friday. If we could move on, minutes of December 20th, any errors or omissions? Seeing none, if I could have a motion to adopt. Moved by Charlie, seconded by Carol. All in favor? Thanks. There's one thing that has come up in the last few days with respect to the minutes, and it was a philosophical discussion that occurred Friday on the inherent logic of a ride grant. What is the inherent logic of deployment in Norfolk of ride patrols? Are they deployed so that we catch people who are impaired, or are they deployed so that we have maximum public relations, as in the most people stopped, so that the most people know that officers are out there looking for impaireds?
What we've really started to do, and it's kind of the directed patrol, focused patrol that Zonk was talking about. So what we're really looking at is that deterrence linked with having an effect on collisions involving alcohol, and the serious injuries and the bodily harm that results from those. So a lot of the ride locations that we pick, the time of the day of the week, are based on analytics of when we find our collisions are happening in relation to alcohol. Does that kind of get into what your question was,
So
Peter?
time and geography.
It really has to do with, like, you want to maximize the contact that we're having with the public. You want to have it in a location that's not the same every time, because people get used to us being there during times of day. You really want it to be a surprise, so that people never know if we're going to be out, when we're going to be out. At the same time, we have to take into consideration when those collisions are happening that are causing serious bodily harm in relation to alcohol-involved collisions.
Thank you. Anybody else have questions on this? Because it came up on Friday night. It was something that I was quite tweaked, so. Okay, thank you, Lisa. Any other business arising? Correspondence, not seeing any, so I guess we can go right to the OPP report.
So I think I had a chance to say good morning to everyone, but a second time, good morning. And you're very right, Peter, with my experience that I've been since I've been sitting here, only been a few weeks and over the holidays. It is big shoes to fill with Zonk. It really is, from an outsider coming in, the detachment is a fantastic detachment, and whoever comes here to be the next detachment commander is going to be very fortunate to work with the people that are there as well as yourselves. So that's been my comments since I've been here. I've been very impressed. So hopefully I can do you well in the meantime until that new detachment commander is selected. So, and Zonk is a phone call away for me, which is very appreciative. So I just wanted to introduce Pete Verburn as well. Joe Barga's been off on a leave since New Year's Eve day. We expect Joe to come back on Monday, but Pete's sitting in for Joe in the meantime. So I just wanted to introduce Joe before we got going. Do you want to deal with the old business? Because when I was reviewing the minutes, there was a couple of things that we were going to bring forward from the last minutes, one of which was the Highway 24 collision stats, or do you want me to do the stats first and then get to those afterwards?
If you have a follow-up on Highway 24, let's
Do
deal
the
with
old
it.
business first?
Yeah.
Okay. So we did. We went back and we had our analysts look at all the collisions. It was since 2012 to current year in 2017. So the statistics for 2017 we could only access up until September. So when I talk about 2017, it's not the year in total. So what we had over that period in time, we had 207 collisions in that period of time. And I'll make sure that you have all these stats and a copy of it. 2 of those were fatalities. 50 were personal injury collisions that could range from minor injury to serious life-altering, life-threatening injuries, and 155 property damage collisions. 37 of those collisions were in 2016. 23 were in 2017, so we have had a decrease, but again, remember, we aren't reporting on October, November, December for those numbers. Which hopefully we see somewhat of a decrease because we have been focusing on our enforcement on Highway 24, so I would hope to see some type of reduction in collisions. When we look at the collisions between day of week, time of year, month of year, time of day, they're pretty much equally distributed on the day of the week and the month of the year. There is a spike in January and November. But we do look at if weather plays a factor in that, and when we have the number that are involved in snow and rain as well, which I'll get to you. 76% of the collisions, and this is not abnormal, again from my previous life as the traffic manager, but 76% of those collisions are in clear, dry conditions. Only 17% of the total number of collisions are in snow or rain or some type of adverse road conditions or weather conditions. The primary cause that we saw, 30% was animal collisions. That was number 1. These are in order of the highest volume. Very close behind that is inattentive or lost control. I kind of put them in the same category because if you're losing control, we have speed too fast for conditions, which would take the snow and the weather into consideration. So if somebody is a lost control or inattentive, they've lost control of that vehicle for some reason, which is normally because of inattention. So I've lumped those together. So really the 2 highest are your animal-involved collisions and the inattentive drivers on that stretch of highway. When we looked at the aggravating factors that we thought in our discussion from the last time we met, we were looking at speeding and what we would call a failed to share roadway charge, which is that passing, aggressive passing where you get into collision because people aren't leaving enough room or distance to do that. We aren't seeing that really at all showing up in the collision stats with excessive speed or failed to share roadway. So below that inattentive, we have follow too close, which would follow into that aggressive driving again when you have people that are following too close. Fail to yield and speed too fast for conditions, which would be a weather related. So if it's snowing and somebody's just going too fast for the road conditions and ends up losing control, that's what our officers put down as the primary cause, is speed too fast for conditions. So that's what you're seeing with the trends in the last 5 years on that highway itself. But the numbers are certainly gone up when I look at and I try to sort the data for the animal involved were higher in previous years, so the animal involved has gone down and the inattentive we're seeing is on a rise on that stretch of highway.
Well, I guess we don't really know what to say. Any thoughts about, well, I'll let Jim go.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do have a question. Lisa, thanks very much for that report. It's very, very interesting. The total number, and you referenced 200 and whatever it was, 207 for that period of time. Are you able from West Region, I mean, how does that compare with a similar stretch of 2-lane highway elsewhere in the region? Seems like a lot of accidents to us as lay people, but maybe that's just because we don't know. how frequently these accidents happen on two-lane highways. How does it compare to others within the region?
I haven't done a comparison with
okay.
the other major highways. Like, we could look at Brant because of the Highway 24 extension going north.
Yep.
What I normally look at is if there's a skewed statistic in relation, comparing it to total volume of collisions.
Okay.
Right, so if we have, like, this is over 5 years, and
Yes.
I'm just doing this off the top of my head, I think we have in Norfolk just shy of 1,000, I think it's 936 is the number that comes off the top of my head, I think, for collisions in Norfolk County, for total number of collisions. 37 of that, just shy of 1,000, were on Highway 24. So looking at that number alone, just dealing with total volume of collisions, I don't think that's skewed at all or troublesome. But again, we've been focusing a lot of enforcement on that highway as well. Now, that's looking at total volume collisions. What we normally do is look at traffic enforcement more as a public safety issue and try to look at an analysis separate from total volume. Where are people getting seriously injured and killed? Because that's really where we want to focus our efforts to try to decrease the number of people that are having those serious and fatal injuries. When we look at those numbers, because we have that directed patrol 424, Highway 3, and then is it Brantford Road that is the back end of that triangle there? I think it's Brantford Road, because we just did a focus patrol there that I'll report on, but it's really in that triangle that we're seeing the serious injuries and the fatalities. So a lot of the reasoning for putting people on Highway 24 and Highway 3 is to have that visibility and that deterrent within that triangle. So you can look at total volume, which doesn't really show Highway 24 as an issue, but when we look at the serious collisions, we have a concern.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Dave?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you again for that report. Excellent. The intended portion, I guess there's no way of breaking it down, but I wonder if that is due to texting or cell phone operation?
I would tend to say that. Again, coming from my previous life as traffic manager, we have a huge issue. Like, inattentive driving has taken over for the #1 cause of fatalities over impaired and drug-impaired driving now. So I think we would be naive to think that cell phone use or device use while driving wouldn't be a cause for at least a certain higher percentage of that. There was always an intention in it before we had cell phones, but when you see that cell phone use and devices starting to be used, we see that number just spike. So there would be a certain baseline that would be, you know, being distracted with children in the vehicle or somebody else, or the radio or the heat or whatever adjustments. But yeah, I think we've been very naive to think that that does not have to do with some type of handheld device. And when we go through, actually, I didn't tell you about the time of day, which would relate to your question, Dave. We see a spike in the collisions at 7 in the morning, 5 p.m., right? So people on their way into work, on their way home, and then at 9 p.m. 9 p.m. is actually the highest frequency of collisions that we have along that stretch of highway, followed by the 7 in the morning and then the 5 p.m. But there's not much of a fluctuation between those times, so they're all spikes. So I think it would absolutely have to tie into your question with people commuting and on their way home from work, what's going on with the kids tonight, what are we having for dinner, who knows. But it would certainly coincide with the times we're seeing the spikes.
Other questions? I guess, do you have any recommendations about what we should do about it?
There's, again, coming from my previous life, we're going to continue with Highway 24, that Highway 3, and then the Brantford Road as a part of our traffic enforcement initiatives. When you have highways like that, it makes it difficult to do handheld device enforcement because it's a single lane going each way, and it's really hard to get the visual observations. But we can certainly try to be inventive and see what we can come up with. in relation to that. But it's definitely one of the primary causes there, the inattentiveness along that highway. But we'll keep doing our enforcement on it. It'll continue into Q4, so January to March. It continues as one of our regional directed patrols as well, that stretch of highway. So we will have the HSD, the Highway Safety Division, resources in assisting us with that enforcement as well, because it is a regional directive. There's always the awareness piece too, right, in the communities, and me getting more familiar with the geography and the community here when I'm here and talking to people like Pete. Like, are people commuting Brantford? Like, I'm not sure what the commuter traffic is going up and down. Like, do a lot of people work in the community? Are they traveling to Brantford to work and then coming on their way home? It really depends on a lot of awareness to our community that they need to get off their phones on that highway.
Any other questions? Well, thank you. I guess it will be something that stays on our radar, because it's nice to have the analysis done, because I think that you have surprised us on the time of day for accidents and the total number of accidents, and all on one stretch of road that we're all very familiar with. So by all means, I mean, the continuing on with the patrol is certainly, we would think, would be a priority, but I guess it's what else that you can do is the big question mark. So
I think there's a meeting, again, I'm still getting familiar with your community, but I think there's a meeting tomorrow night, isn't there, of the community safety chairs? Community policing chairs. So that is one of the things. I'm going to bring these stats to that meeting as well, and perhaps we can talk about some type of community awareness and getting them engaged on that end. That might assist as well.
great. Any other questions? So go ahead, Lisa.
Thank you for the reminder. To start with the overtime amounts, we don't have that updated for December yet, so the numbers that you see here in this report reflect what was reported the last time that we met for November. I had our ladies check this morning, and the numbers still weren't updated to bring to the meeting, so we'll bring that forward for the next meeting. Also, a lot of the 2017 year-end information hasn't totally been amalgamated within the OPP itself, so we don't have the draw. So the majority of what I'll be reporting with you today is on the December month ends. When I can touch on the year ends, I'll give you that. But perhaps the next meeting we can do more of a year-end analysis for the 2017, if that's okay with you. So as of, I'll just report on what we had the last time. So 2017 dollars spent to date, 318,801 this year, as opposed to 309,768 for 2016. We're at an 88.6, just shy of 88.6 percentage spent for 2017 before we add our December numbers in there. For the Crime Stoppers report, so far there's been 594 anonymous tips received so far in 2017. You see the stats there, over 2,000 arrests, over $42,000 in narcotics seized as a result, and just shy of $6,000 in property recovered, and over 6,000 charges laid as a result of those tips. So they've been very substantial. It's been working very well for us. January, just to note here, January is designated as Crime Stoppers Month worldwide. So that's going on for January. Currently, there's tickets being sold right now, $20 each for a fundraiser that's actually tomorrow night. It's Crime Stoppers, in support of Crime Stoppers Awareness Month. That's going to be at the Boston Pizza here at Simcoe. And for more information, or if you want tickets, you can contact at 519-426-3434, extension 7452, to get tickets for that tomorrow night. National initiatives will be coming out in the coming months to inform the public in relation to the ongoing and serious issue of human trafficking and contraband tobacco. They'll be doing some awareness programs for that. The Crime Stoppers Board is also actively seeking new board members at this time. 3 new board members joined in January, 2 from Haldeman and 1 from Norfolk. So that's for the Crime Stoppers update. In relation to calls for service, for December we had 938, which compared to 1,052 from December of last year. Year to date, we're at 14,424 calls for service, where in 2016 we were at 14,386. So just a slight increase in our calls for service for 2017. For the report on the crime and traffic statistics. So when I look at all violent crime occurrences, we were expected to be between 24 and 40 events for December. We had 18 actual events, so we were below the projected range for December. And we're also below the projected range for all of 2017, showing an 18% decrease in overall violent crime. Assaults, we were expecting 20 events. During the month of December, we actually had 9. So again, we're below the projected range for December in assaults. Domestic disturbance events, we were expecting 50 events and reported 44, and just slightly below the projected range for December with the domestic disturbances as well. For property crime, when we look at all property crime combined, we expected between 93 and 119 events for December. Our actual events were 71, so again, we were below the projected range, and also below the projected range for all property crime for all of 2017 as well. Individually, break-and enters, we were expecting 15 events. 6 were actually reported, so again, we were below the projected range for break-and enters. Fraud events, we expected 13, and the actual number was 7. So again, we were below the projected range on the frauds. When we look at mischief events, we were expecting 28 events, and the actual was 13. Again, below the projected range. Theft from motor vehicles, we expected 13 events, actually a range of between 8 and 18. During the reported month, there was actually 8 events, so we were within the projected range for December, but on the lower end in relation to theft from motor vehicles. Theft of vehicles, we expected 7 events. During the reported period, we actually had 6, so we were within the projected range for theft of vehicles. Theft under, we were expecting 38 events. And actually 38 events were actually reported. So we were again within the projected range. When we look at the illicit drug category, we were expecting a range of between 6 and 16 events for the month of December. 6 events were actually investigated, which puts us within that projected range again. Drug events reported within the projected range for December, which I said. In regards to drug investigations, Haldeman Norfolk Street Crime Unit made 5 arrests, laid 2 CDSA charges and 6 criminal code charges for the month of December. Also, a John Deere tractor valued at $250,000 was recovered. And like I said, drug events reported within the projected range also for all of 2017 as a whole. When we look at the traffic numbers, all collision types, it appears when I look at it between property damage, non-fatal injury, it looks like in the total number we're up in pretty much 10% across the board. So all collisions The projected range was at 94. And that was within the projected range, sorry, the number was 94, and it was within the projected range of collisions in December. A year-to-date increase that we saw, though, was 10.3% in relation to the total volume of collisions that we were seeing in 2017. Property damage collisions for December reported within the projected range at 79. So 79 out of that 94 that you see there are actually property damage. Property damage collisions did see a decrease of 10 from December of last year. However, a year-to-date increase of 11% was observed over the entire year of 2017. Non-fatal collisions for December reported above the projected range at 15. Non-fatal injury collisions did see an increase of 2 or 15% from December of last year. And year-to-date, we've seen an increase of 9.4% compared to 2016 on the non-fatal injury collisions. Non-fatal injury collisions totaled 15 for December. In reviewing the collisions, they ranked as primary causation inattentive again as number 1, loss control as number 2, fail to yield right away, speed too fast for condition, which is very similar to what we were talking about for the Highway 24 collisions, improper turn, and debris on roadway. Fatal collisions for December reported within the projected range. We actually did not have any fatal collisions in December. This was a decrease over last year. Last year in December, we did see 2 fatal collisions. Year to date, we've seen a decrease of 20% in the number of fatal collisions as reported from 2017. Impaired driving. We were expecting 6 events, so between 4 and 8. During the reported month in December, 6 actual events were investigated. So again, we were within the projected range for impaired driving. I will, in the Focus Patrol piece, report on what our festive ride numbers and everything were over the holiday season. When we get to the Mental Health Act update, we were expecting 39 events, and that would be between 31 and 47 in the month of December. And we actually had 39 investigated, so we were within the projected range. During the month of December, of those 39 related occurrences, 330 hours were dedicated to the investigation of those Mental Health Act occurrences. The average year-to-date time spent so far per mental health call for service is 4.5 hours. Mental Health Act events in Norfolk County reported within the projected range for December. And we are, as we all know, with our conversation at the last meeting, we're up. When I looked at the numbers for 2017, we're up 35% over last year in our mental health calls. Now, I did look into that a little bit further. And the last meeting, we did have a conversation about one particular resident that was, we had a number of mental health calls in relation to. I just need to find my numbers that I did here. Okay. Okay. So when I look at, in 2016, we had 499 mental health calls in the entire year. In 2017, we're seeing 676 calls. That's a difference. We've had an increase of 177 calls in 2017. When I look at this particular resident that we were speaking about, there was 108 calls for service in relation to that resident in 2016. There was 235 in 2017. So that increase alone is 127 out of that 177. So that one resident alone is responsible for 72% of the increase in the mental health calls that you're seeing. When I look at the 2017 total, again, the total number of mental health calls, we're looking at that resident being responsible for 35% of our total volume of mental health calls within our detachment area. So I just bring that forward so that you understand that that increase doesn't necessarily mean that we're having a huge increase in mental health calls for service, a variety of them. It's particularly in relation to the one resident that we did have a very positive update on at the last meeting, and that situation continues to be very good at the current time. So hopefully we have got the support services that we need for that. So I just wanted to give you that because the numbers, 35% increase is very significant. Moving on to, I think there's just two topics there left, the 911 calls. We were expecting between 101 and 152 events. We actually had 100, so we were slightly below the projected range. Alarm calls, we expected between 53 and 72. The actual number was 55. Again, we were within the projected range for that. In relation to foot patrol numbers, so in December, our members had 367.75 foot patrol areas, and it looks like it was distributed between Port Rowan, Langdon, the Norfolk Mall, Simcoe, Port Dover, Delhi, Waterford, and then it has other down here. I'm not sure what the other is, but I can get clarification on that if you want. Again, this compared to December of last year was slightly down in our numbers. Bicycle patrol, we did not have any in December. And school visits in December, we had 22 school visits, and we're showing a total of 449 school visits for the year of 2017. Moving on to our charge summary, driving charges. In December, we had a total of 126 Highway Traffic Act offenses issued. So I was just looking at the breakdown here. So far this year, we have had, in 2017, we have had 44 distracted driving charges, 32 racing charges, 2,676 speeding charges, 97 seatbelt offenses issued, and it looks like 137 impaired driving charges for the year. In relation to driver's license suspensions, ride statistics, I'll get to here. We've had, in December, we had 2 roadside screening devices. We had 9 ADLS suspensions issued and 1 3-day suspension. We had, again, I'll report further in the festive ride stats, but we had 46 ride programs. In December, a total of 555 ride programs for the year of 2017. And seatbelt checks, we had 3 in December, and we had a total of 233 in the year of 2017.
Yeah, we have a question. Go ahead, Jim.
Lisa, on that same page with all of the various driving charges, the very first one that you quoted to us, the distracted driving, that to me, 44 as compared to 92 the previous year. I mean, that's very good, obviously. That's a significant drop in the number of charges. Is that, do you think, a glitch, or is that somehow reflective of efforts that we've had through Ed's press releases and so on about distracted driving? Or how could we have achieved, more than a 100% reduction or 50% reduction, I should say?
And I think, I wouldn't say it's a glitch. I would have no reason to believe that that's an error in the calculations. It's provincially, the numbers are down
Okay.
across the province and across the region. Although we do see that inattentive driving numbers going through the roof in relation to our collision volumes. It's, like I say, when you have county roads and the more on the 401, it makes it a lot easier to do the enforcement because you can pull up alongside a vehicle and you can do the observations to get the evidence that you need. When you're working on a stretch of highway such as Highway 24 that we're talking about, it's really, really difficult to do that enforcement on those roadways. A lot of the focus of our traffic initiatives in 2017 was rules of the road in relation to collision reductions. Inattentive driving was a piece of that as well. So I really want to look more into the numbers for you to get an answer, but I also don't want to see that reduction in numbers when we know inattentive driving is one of our primary causes of collisions. It's trying to find ways to do the enforcement on stretches of highways where we know it's an issue. Because we do a lot of directed patrols, and it's one thing for officers, say, to set up at an intersection or someplace where they can see a vehicle rolling to be able to do it. But if that's not a problem collision area for that type of enforcement, we want our people doing the enforcement where it's going to reduce the collisions and the purpose for the collisions. So it becomes very tricky to try to do. But I myself and whoever takes this chair as well we want to see those numbers higher with the number of distracted driving tickets that are being issued.
Yes, Mr. Chair. Similar type question. I notice our impaired driving is down significantly. I'm hoping it's more of a comment. I'm hoping that the advertisements that we put out to the public now are finally getting aware of the impaired driving.
Those numbers as well are indicative as provincial numbers. So Norfolk wouldn't be an outlier in relation. We're seeing the same trend provincially. Our enforcement with the festive ride that we had, I'll get to. We do see, when I looked at the collision rates when we were talking about Highway 24, normally provincially, we see alcohol-related collisions in around 1% of a total collision volume. Just in the analysis that we did on Highway 3, we're at about a 3% collision volume in relation to alcohol-related collisions on that highway. The impaired the impaired driving enforcement numbers, again, we have the drug-impaired driving as well that we're looking at and trying to get a handle on. So we'll see, hopefully we'll see those numbers come up in the coming year as well for the impaired driving stats. I don't know, Pete, can you offer any? Again, not having a history of the detachment and not knowing what I can certainly get answers for you in the reduction of the numbers. And we'll go through the festive ride stats. Because what did we have for? Well, we saw a decrease in the number of ride checks that we had. It looks like about a decrease from 2016 to 2017 of 110 ride checks that we saw a decrease in. To be honest with you, I don't think there's an increase in the number of people that are driving with alcohol on board or in their system. It's the amount of enforcement that we're actually out there and doing. But at the same time, we're not seeing a huge issue with our alcohol-related collisions in the county itself at this point in time. That was a really roundabout answer to answering your question, Dave. For a report on focus patrols, I'll just break it up into the crime and the traffic. So we currently have one open focus patrol, that's the Cottage Watch. It started running on the 22nd of December. It'll be running until the 1st of May, and it's in response to the break-and-enters along with theft events in cottages in Norfolk County during the off-season. So that'll be ongoing until the 1st of May. This was old business from the last meeting that we had as well, with a focus patrol to be reported on. It was Simcoe Panorama. So the duration was from the 24th of November until the 1st of January. It was generated in response to theft and mischief-related events that occurred in the past during the Simcoe Panorama. As a result of the focus patrol, 25 uniformed officers dedicated 61 hours to patrolling the Simcoe Panorama. This was supported by 6 auxiliary officers dedicating 65 hours. During this focus patrol, there were 2 incidents reported: a theft of approximately $15 from the wishing well, and a break-and-enter to one of the displays, resulting in approximately $200 in quarters being taken from the candy machines. Traffic, we will be continuing with the focus patrols, like I say, on Highway 24 and Highway 3, that have been the same focus and patrols that we've had since April 1st of this year. Also to be reported on an update from our last meeting, were we had 2 focus patrols close, one of which was the Highway 3 stretch I talked about, and then the Highway 24 stretch. So we kind of run those in quarters. So the first one ran from April to September, and then we did the September to December. So in total, I was going to give you an update because we just reported on the Norfolk detachment members' contributions to that initiative. So as a result, 39 officers have dedicated 266 hours to enforcement on Highway 3. As a result of that enforcement, a total of 79 charges and 18 warnings were issued. The charges break down as the majority of them were speeding, followed by other Highway Traffic Act offenses, insurance-related offenses, driver's license, fail to signal lane change, expired validation, tobacco-related seizure. There was 1 impaired driver arrested during that time, stunt racing charge, liquor license violation, and permit-related charges. So there's quite a range of charges that were laid during that. In addition to those 79 charges, our Highway Safety Division, our regional unit, was also on the highway for an additional 12 hours, laying 6 charges in addition to that. The next one was the conclusion of the concluding report on the Highway 24 section again. So as a result of the focus patrol, and these numbers are since December, or 1st of April, 38 officers have dedicated just shy of 500 hours. It's 493 hours to enforcement on Highway 24. As a result of the enforcement, 292 charges have been laid, 19 warnings issued. Charges break down as the majority is speeding. Again, insurance violations. There was 19 warnings, as I said. Other Highway Traffic Act offenses. Driver's license related issues, expired validation. There were 3 impaired drivers during that time frame that were arrested and charged. Unauthorized use of license plates. Controlled drugs and substances investigations, 2 of them. Stunt racing charge, permit-related offenses, commercial motor vehicle charges, and unsafe passing and liquor license as well. So again, a huge variety of charges. In addition to our just shy of 500 hours our Norfolk officers have put in, the regional HSD units have also put in an additional 80 hours and laid an additional 65 charges along that stretch of highway. So the festive ride program was also running in December, actually the last week of November up until the 4th of January, I think it concluded, and we were taking part in that. We had 8 charges of impaired driving that were laid during that festive ride program, 3 worn range suspensions, and 72 ride programs during that time frame for festive ride. Doesn't look like we had any speed spy studies or anything going on in December, obviously because of the weather that we had. And I think that concludes, pending any questions, that concludes, let me see if I just, oh, I do have some new business points here that I just wanted to bring up as well to keep you up to date. I was going to mention Inspector Horvat's retirement, but obviously he was here to speak about that and everybody's aware. I do have a poster and some updated information for anybody who wants some more information on that as well. We had three officers injured actually in relation to an arrest we had ongoing involving a knife. There was no serious injuries. One of our officers is back to full duties right now, and another one will be on light duties as a result of the injuries, pending medical clearance in relation to the injuries. So it was a very fortunate incident that nobody was seriously injured or killed, and it just brings everybody more keenly aware of the risks that we're faced with some of the arrests that we're doing. So really big kudos to our street crime unit in relation to that arrest. There was a lot of escalation of violence in relation to this offender, and they did everything they could to track him down and ensure that he was in custody with us. So at the end of the day, everything turned out well. I just wanted to give an update on that. Also in relation to the naloxone kits that have been deployed to the OPP, over the holidays, the 2 weeks over the holidays, we had 2 successful uses and deployments by our officers. One was someone that was within our offender transport unit custody already. Another one was a call for service within Simcoe in relation to a male in distress. So both deployments, again, we were very fortunate that our officers were very close to both calls and could get the naloxone deployed, and both of the people were responsive afterwards and transported to hospital. So very good for a piece of kit for us and for public safety. We also ran in December a United Way campaign. And out of the West region contributions, there was $19,000 that was raised by West region. And again, this was before my time, but I definitely want to make sure that you are aware Norfolk detachment itself was responsible for $14,000 of those funds being raised with our officers and the different programs and things that they were involved in here. And to give you some idea, the $14,000 from Norfolk, it was a $71,000 contribution as the province as a total for the OPP. So it was a very significant